She was 18 and sleeping behind a grocery store with nothing but a backpack, an old rabbit cage, and 43 cents in her pocket. Rainwater dripped through the broken plastic awning above her. Cold wind pushed the smell of rotten fruit and wet cardboard into the alley. Beside her, a small white rabbit twitched its nose inside the cage. "Milo," she whispered, rubbing the bars gently. We're still okay." But she didn't even believe herself anymore. 3 weeks earlier, her stepfather had thrown her clothes onto the front lawn after another screaming fight about money. Her mother stood at the doorway, crying quietly, but she never stopped him. And just like that, Lena Hart became someone with nowhere to go. For days, she walked through town searching for work. No one wanted an 18-year-old girl with no address and tired eyes. Then she saw the sign. "For sale, old property. $1 cash purchase. Condemned condition." The building sat at the end of Willow Street, like it had been forgotten by time itself. An abandoned clockmaker shop. The windows were dusty. The hanging clock above the door had stopped at 3:17 decades ago. Nobody wanted it, which was exactly why she could afford it. But what she didn't know was, something inside that silent little shop had been waiting for someone to come back. And on her third night, there her rabbit started scratching at the wall behind a giant spring case clock. That was the moment Lena realized. The building was hiding something. Something heavy. Something impossible. Before we continue with stories like this, pull you in stories about struggle, hidden history, and second chances, take a second, subscribe, and stay with us until the end. Because this one isn't really about gold. It's about what people leave behind when they think nobody will remember them. Lena's grandfather used to repair watches at a tiny kitchen table beside the window. She remembered the sound more than anything else. Tick, tick, tick. Tiny metal heartbeats filling the apartment late at night. When she was little, she would sit beside him wrapped in a blanket, while rain tapped softly against the glass. He had thick, rough hands that smelled like machine oil and peppermint tea. Every clock tells the truth, eventually, he used to say. She never understood what he meant. Her grandfather, Arthur Hart, had worked 37 years repairing clocks inside a railway station workshop. He could take apart a pocket watch with his eyes half closed. But when digital time replaced mechanical clocks, the work disappeared slowly. First fewer customers, then fewer repairs, then silence. Lena remembered watching him wrap his old tools in cloth one winter evening. Not angry, not bitter, just quiet. Her grandmother Evelyn used to say that silence hurt him more than poverty ever did. They lived carefully after that. Soup stretched for days. Old coats patched again and again. Lights turned off early to save electricity. Still, every Sunday morning, Arthur repaired one broken clock for free. Sometimes for neighbors, sometimes for strangers. People deserved to hear time moving, he would tell her. Lena loved those mornings. Dust floating through sunlight. Warm toast. Tiny screws lined up like silver seeds across the table. Those memories stayed with her long after he died. And after he was gone, everything in the family changed. Her mother stopped smiling much after Arthur's funeral. Bills piled up. The apartment got smaller somehow. Then came Rick, her stepfather. At first, he seemed helpful, loud, but friendly. He fixed pipes, carried groceries, brought cheap flowers. Then slowly things changed. His voice grew sharper every year. He hated junk. Old objects, old memories, old habits. Especially anything connected to Arthur. One afternoon, Lena came home from school and found her grandfather's toolbox sitting beside the trash bins. Rain soaked through the leather handles. She ran outside barefoot to save it. Rick laughed from the doorway. "That garbage belongs in the ground with him," he said. Her mother didn't answer. That silence stayed with Lena longer than the words. Later that night, she opened the toolbox, secretly, in her bedroom. Inside were tiny brass gears, bent tweezers, clock springs wrapped carefully in cloth, and a folded note written in Arthur's shaky handwriting. For Lena, the patient ones always find what others miss. She kept that note hidden for years, even after Rick sold most of Arthur's remaining things. Even after her mother stopped defending her. Even after the house no longer felt like home. The only thing Lena refused to give away was Milo. The rabbit had belonged to her grandfather too. A tiny white rabbit with gray ears and curious black eyes. Arthur used to let Milo wander beside him while he repaired clocks. The rabbit loved small dark corners and wooden cabinets. He liked secrets, Arthur would joke. After Arthur died, Milo became strangely attached to Lena, and when she was thrown out at 18, she took him with her. Because some things are too connected to memory to abandon. The Clockmaker shop stood at the edge of town, where businesses slowly disappeared one by one. Most people avoided Willow Street after sunset. Half the buildings were boarded shut. Paint peeled from brick walls like old paper skin. When Lena first pushed open the shop, doorbell rattled weakly overhead. The smell hit her immediately. Dust, old wood, rust, rain trapped inside walls. But underneath all of it, there was something strangely comforting, like stepping into a forgotten photograph. Shelves lined every wall. Broken clocks everywhere. Tall grandfather clocks leaning sideways. Tiny carriage clocks. Wall clocks frozen at random hours. The silence inside felt thick. Not empty. Waiting. An old city clerk handed her the property papers without even looking at the building. "You really want this place?" he asked. "It all I can afford." He stared for a moment before shrugging. "Your problem now. $1. That was the price. One wrinkled bill for an entire abandoned life. That first night, she slept beneath the counter wrapped in an old coat while rain hammered the roof. Milo Cage sat beside her, somewhere deep inside the building. A clock chimed once. Lena sat upright immediately. She checked every shelf. Nothing moving. Every clock dead. Yet she knew she heard it. One chime. Low, distant. Almost hidden. Days became routines. Morning light crept through dusty windows and pale gray streaks. Lena cleaned slowly, because there was simply too much to do. She found old receipts from the 1970s. Tiny clock hands and cracked jars. Photographs ruined by moisture. The shop had belonged to a man named Walter Vale. Nobody in town spoke about him much. Only an old woman from the bakery remembered anything. He repaired clocks for free during the war. She told Lena softly, people trusted him. What happened to him? The woman paused. Disappeared one winter. That answer only created more questions. At night, the building became different. The pipes groaned softly, would crack in the walls. Wind hummed through unseen gaps. And sometimes, faint ticking echoed somewhere deep inside the shop. Not loud, just enough to make her stop breathing for a second. Tick, tick, tick. But every clock she checked was dead. Every single one. Still the sound continued some nights. Milo noticed it too. The rabbit would freeze, suddenly ears raised toward the back wall behind the largest clock in the store. A massive spring-case grandfather clock covered in canvas sheets. Unlike the others, this one was bolted to the wall, and impossibly heavy. On the 10th night, Lena woke to scratching sounds. Tiny rapid scratches. She reached for her flashlight. Milo was outside his cage, scratching furiously behind the giant clock. "What are you doing?" She pulled him back gently. The wall behind the clock looked ordinary. Old wood panels, dust cracks. Still something felt strange. The next morning she examined the floor carefully. One section sounded hollow. Not completely, just slightly different. That should have been enough to explain things away. Old buildings creak. Old wood shifts. But curiosity is dangerous when you're lonely. That evening she borrowed tools from a mechanic nearby named Samuel Ortiz. Samuel was in his 60s with tired eyes and greased, darkened hands. "What an 18-year-old girl doing alone in that death trap?" he asked, trying not to freeze. He laughed quietly at that. Over the next week, Samuel became the closest thing Lena had to support. Not dramatic, not emotional. He simply showed up sometimes. Coffee, nails, advice. Small kindnesses matter more when someone is almost nothing. One rainy afternoon, Lena finally managed to move the giant clock slightly forward. Dust exploded into the air. Behind it, she found scratches carved into the wall. Tiny marks, like someone counted days there. Her stomach tightened. Then she noticed something stranger. One panel had newer nails than the others. Not modern, but newer. as if someone repaired only that section decades later. That night, she couldn't sleep. Wind shook the windows. Milo wandered near the clock repeatedly. Then came the sound again. Tick, 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 this time louder. Lena pressed her ear against the wall. The sound stopped immediately. Silence swallowed everything. She stood there for nearly a minute. Then, a faint metallic shift echoed inside the wall itself. Not pipes, not wood, metal, heavy metal. The next morning, Lena removed the wall panel nails carefully. Her hands shook the entire time. Not from fear exactly, from anticipation. Like her body sensed something before her mind did. The panel refused to move at first. Then suddenly, crack, dust burst outward. Behind the wall sat a narrow hidden cavity, only a few feet deep. Inside was darkness. Cold darkness. Lena raised her flashlight slowly. At first she saw only old fabric bundles. Then metal, large cylindrical objects stacked carefully. For one strange second she thought they were machine parts. Until she touched one. Gold. Not shiny movie gold. Old gold. Heavy dull reel. Her breath disappeared. She pulled one brick closer with trembling fingers. Stamp markings covered the surface. Beside the gold sat a leather journal wrapped carefully in oilcloth, and underneath it, an envelope. The front read, "For the one who returns." Lena stared at the handwriting. She recognized it instantly. Not Walter Vale. Her grandfather, Arthur Hart. The room tilted around her. How? Her voice barely existed. Milo nudged against her legs softly, while rain tapped against the shop windows. For a long time, she simply sat there on the dusty floor, staring at the hidden compartment, not touching anything else. Because suddenly the gold mattered less than one impossible question. Why did her grandfather know about this place? The journal belonged to Walter Vale. Its pages smelled like oil dust and old paper. Lena read slowly through the night. During the economic collapse decades earlier, Walter secretly hid valuables for struggling families who feared losing everything to corrupt officials and violent theft. Jewelry coin savings. But the gold bars came later, during wartime shortages. Several local families combined what little wealth they had and asked Walter to protect it. He built the hidden compartment himself. Only 2 people knew the full mechanism. Walter Vale and Arthur Hart, her grandfather. Arthur had apprenticed inside the shop as a teenager before railway work took him elsewhere. He helped build the hidden wall. But before they could retrieve the gold years later, Walter disappeared during a brutal winter storm. Arthur searched for the hidden compartment for years afterward. But Walter had altered the locking system one final time. The mechanism could only open if the enormous spring case clock shifted completely forward. Arthur never managed it alone after growing older. The final letter inside the envelope was written shortly before his death. Lena, if you reading this, then you were patient enough to hear what others ignored. That was always your gift. Walter believed hidden things reveal themselves only to gentle people. Not greedy people. Not loud people. Gentle people. If life became difficult for you someday, I hoped maybe this place would still remain. Not to make you rich, but to remind you that forgotten people still leave marks on the world. Take care of Milo. And remember, time always tells the truth eventually. Lena cried harder than she had in years. Not because of the gold, because for the first time since his death, she felt seen again. The months afterward were not magical. There was no sudden mansion, no luxury car, no perfect ending. The legal process alone took forever. Historians became involved, lawyers too. Much of the gold legally belonged to descendants of the original families. And Lena agreed willingly, because greed would have destroyed the meaning of everything her grandfather protected. Still, a portion remained hers legally after the investigation, enough to rebuild her life carefully. She repaired the shop first. Not completely, just enough. Fresh paint, new windows, working heat. Samuel helped install shelves. The bakery woman brought food sometimes. Slowly people returned, not for gold, for clocks. Lena taught herself restoration, using Arthur's old notes. She made mistakes constantly. Springs snapped. Glass cracked. Some nights, she sat frustrated near tears. But every repair clock felt like bringing something breathing back to life. Tick, tick, tick. The shop slowly filled with sound again. One afternoon, a little boy entered carrying his dead grandfather pocket watch. "Can you fix it?" he asked quietly. Lena turned the tiny watch carefully in her hands. And for a moment, she saw Arthur sitting beside the rainy kitchen window again. "Yes," she smiled softly, "I think I can." People think hidden treasure changes lives because of money. Sometimes it does. But the real treasure inside that shop wasn't gold. It was proof that kindness survives longer than fear. Walter protected people. Arthur protected memory. And Lena, she protected both. The world threw her away at 18. But hidden beneath years of dust silence and forgotten time, someone had still prepared a path for her. Not easy, not perfect, but possible. Sometimes healing doesn't arrive loudly. Sometimes it sounds like an old clock finally ticking again. 2 years later, the hanging clock above the shop door worked again. 3:17 no longer frozen forever. On winter evenings, warm yellow light spilled through the front windows onto Willow Street. People stopped there now, not because of rumors about gold, because the little clock shop felt alive again. Some nights Lena stayed late, after closing, listening to dozens of clocks ticking softly together. Milo slept near the counter, older, now slower. And every once in a while, she unfolded Arthur's note again. The patient ones always find what others miss. At 18, she thought being abandoned meant her story was over. But standing inside the restored shop, surrounded by steady ticking sounds, she finally understood something her grandfather tried to teach her long ago. Broken things are not useless things. Forgotten things are not empty things. And sometimes, the people thrown away by the world become the very ones who uncover what everyone else failed to see. If this story stayed with you, subscribe for more emotional mystery stories like this one. And in the comments, tell us, what one old object, memory, or person in your life could you never forget no matter how much time passes? Because sometimes the smallest things carry the deepest history.